Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Make sure to like the video if you enjoy it and don't forget to subscribe. Today we're continuing with the theme of looking at the brand new Arena of Sanctuary mini box within Duel Links, and today we're actually covering the common cards. So the first card we've got is Valkyrie Chariot. This is a light attribute fairy type level 2 monster with 800 attack and 1200 defense. Its effect is Valkyrie monsters you control gain 200 attack for each of your opponent's banished monsters. If you control a Valkyrie monster other than Valkyrie Chariot, you can send one spell or trap card from your deck to the graveyard. You can only use this effect of Valkyrie Chariot once per turn. This is the card I was mentioning before, which gives all of your Valkyrie monsters, including itself, a 200 attack boost for each of your opponent's banished monsters. If you are able to actually pair this with both Seshed and Soul Release, so Seshed discards 2 cards from the top of your opponent's deck. If you're able to use that a couple of times and actually have 5 monsters in your opponent's graveyard, that's an 1000 attack boost per Valkyrie monster you have on your field. That can make a massive amount of difference, and can make the difference between winning that turn and maybe giving your opponent a chance of actually countering you, depending on what they would draw in their next turn. Think of it this way: if you've got 3 monsters on your field, which is the maximum for Duel Links, that's 1000 attack for each of them. That's 3000 overall more damage you can do, versus if you didn't have this card on the field in the first place. Of course, it gets stronger the more times and the more monsters your opponent has banished, so this is why I also run things like Soul Release and Karma Cut, just to boost the certainty of using that effect. I would say with the other effect, I've not used it. Sending a spell or trap card from your deck to the graveyard, I don't see the purpose of it. I know you've got Charit, which can recover a continuous spell card, and I think the interaction with it is, you get rid of that and you summon Charit at some point to recover that card and then to use it. But for the time being, until those cards actually come out, the Goddess cards, I don't see the value of it. I could see maybe using something like, if you know I think it's called the Despair Uranus or something like that. Or Saturn. It's one of those cards which is like one of the Earth. It's one of the planetary cards which is able to actually protect all your continuous spell and trap cards. I could see someone running that style of deck if they wanted to, but it's a little bit too niche for the time being. So the next card we have is Fortune Chariot. This is a level 6 wind attribute fairy / union effect monster, and it's considered always to be a Valkyrie card. The effect is, once per turn, you can either target one fairy monster you control, equip this card to that target, or unequip this card and special summon it. If the equipped monster would be destroyed by battle or card effect, destroy this card instead. The equipped monster can attack directly, but when it does so using this effect, the battle damage inflicted to your opponent is halved. Personally, I don't run this card. I think the more of these types of cards you run, the more cloggy your deck becomes. They have a few higher level monsters, which mean that actually running this is a significant risk. And I don't see this effect kind of being that useful unless your opponent is on really low life points. I would rather focus on the banishing style effects to remove most of my opponent's threats. That way actually also gaining attack points through some of the other cards like Thumped, as I mentioned earlier, and Dritter as well. I just don't see the point of using this effect. So Valkyrie Chariot is a wind attribute fairy type union monster, level 3 with 500 attack and 1000 defense. And the effect is, once per turn, you can either target one fairy monster you control, equip this card to that target, or unequip this card and special summon it. If the equipped monster would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy this card instead. When the equipped monster declares an attack, you can have it gain 500 attack. This attack gain remains even if this card leaves the field. The interesting thing about this card is actually every time it attacks, it gains that 500 attack boost. So yes, I can see why you would want to run it. Personally, for me, I've tried to keep it as pure Valkyrie as possible, even though it's part of the same archetype support. And I thought actually running these might be a bit too cloggy. I'd rather work on having a little bit more spell and trap support alongside, rather than run additional monsters which could be destroyed. Preferable for this, I tend to use something like Power of the Guardian, which has an inbuilt effect where it actually protects as well. So I think that's actually a lot better than this card, especially since that actually boosts both its attack and defense. This only focuses on the attack. Although saying that, this does have the effect where even if this card leaves the field, you keep those attack points. So and that's the one advantage I would see above and beyond Power of the Guardian. The next card is Giraffe. This is a light attribute thunder type monster. It's a level 4 with 1200 attack and 100 defense. Its effect is this card can attack your opponent directly. If this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end of this turn. I don't see this as being as good as What Pheasant or What Cobra, from the point of view that it has to have successfully made the direct attack before this effect activates. If it had been something like your opponent cannot activate spell or trap cards until the end phase or something like that, or until the damage step, I would have thought this was good. But you know, if your opponent is going to be stupid enough to let this attack through, they're going to know to get rid of this, because that way they can respond to your other monsters. I can only see this being good if you can kind of bulk this card up, or do something where your opponent isn't able to activate anything, or actually be able to kind of protect this with something like Power of the Guardians, just to kind of give it that emphasis, the additional protection it needs. The next card is Trickstar Narcissus. This is a light attribute fairy type level 4 with 1000 attack and 1800 defense. Its effect is if your opponent takes effect damage except during a damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only use this effect of Trickstar Narcissus once per turn. Each time your opponent activates a monster effect in their hand or graveyard, inflict 200 damage to them immediately after it resolves. So this is what I was saying about the other Trickstar as well. They all mostly focus on little bits of burn damage. They're always 200 times whenever these effects activate. So you can actually get your opponent's life points down quite quickly. This is actually very effective because you can actually special summon this quite easily, and it punishes your opponent every time they kind of activate an effect. I know at the moment it's quite big to have. There's a couple of cards which activate, which would help this effect trigger. So you've got Kiteroid, which can activate both in the hand and the graveyard. So you can actually burn them twice for 400 life points damage. Alternatively, you also have Bacon Saver, which activates in the graveyard. I'm sure there are other cards. You've got White Stone of Legend. You've got the Ancient Stone of Legend as well. And there are probably other cards which activate in the graveyard, which help to trigger off this effect. My only concern is until we get more of the Trickstars in the game, this isn't that viable, but hopefully in the future that's kind of the direction that they're planning to go with, especially as they're approaching some of the new Duel world. The next card I'm looking at is Avatar of the Pot. This is an Earth attribute rock type, level 3 with 1200 attack and 1300 defense. The effect is by sending one Pot of Greed from your hand to the graveyard, you draw 3 cards from your deck. Currently, Pot of Greed is banned, and therefore you won't be able to use this. I think Jaden Yuki has one of these effects where you can get one of these type of cards. I think it's either Pot of Greed or some of these other cards that you can use as a result of his player skill. So potentially you could actually do that. Otherwise, I don't really see this as anything more than just a deck filler. It's not even worth using as just a standardized monster, even for a rock deck. Spirit of the Pot of Greed is a light attribute fairy type level 1 monster with 100 attack and 100 defense. Its effect is while this card is in face up attack position on the field, if a player activates Pot of Greed, they can draw one more card. Again, I've got the same opinion as for the other card. It's very much a case of if you can use Jaden's skill to draw into Pot of Greed, that's fine because you'll then get another card off of it. My only condition is, of course, if you're placing a mirror match and your opponent draws into a Pot of Greed, they can benefit from this effect. Also, this card being, a level 1 with barely any stat line to it, means if you draw into this card, it's pretty useless unless you can use something like, I don't even know, Invocation, something like that, to get rid of it, to bring out something a little bit stronger like Invoked Macabre. And of course, with any of the packs, now comes to the the annoying, disappointing portion of the packs. This is Neck Hunter. It's a Dark Attribute Fiend level 6 with 1,750 attack and 1,900 defense. It's a very old card. I don't think it actually ever had an English release, mostly because of the design of it. So it being introduced within Duel Links isn't going to really make any sort of difference. The stat lineup is too weak for a level 6. You've got even things like Beast of Talwar, which is a 2,450 attack monster, which is a much better equivalent. You've got other level 6 monsters out there, even level 4 monsters that are actually a lot stronger than this card. I would never consider running it. It's just a deck filler. Great Bill is a Earth Attribute Beast type level 4 monster with 1,250 attack and 1,300 defense. Nothing escapes from this beast's massive mouth. Again, for a level 4, it's incredibly weak, and again, it's just a deck slot position. This card is called Jog Change Mirror. It's a Dark Attribute Fiend level 3 with 800 attack and 1,300 defense. The flavor text is a wicked mirror that blocks off the damaging effects of an attack. I think because of the design of it, it's never had any English release. Again, it's just a pack filler. Beet Snake is an Earth Attribute Reptile. It's a level 3 with 800 attack and 900 defense. The flavor text on it is this monster wraps itself around an opponent and pecks away with its huge beak. I think because of the design of it, it looks a bit too creepy, and that's why it's never actually had a release outside of the OCG. It's also just a deck filling slot. The All-Seeing White Tiger is a Wind Attribute Beast type level 3 with 1,300 attack and 500 defense. Its flavor text is a proud ruler of the jungle that some fear and others respect. This card is not useful at all, although saying that, I do like the design. I think it's really good as a design. I just think it needed an effect. Its stat line for a level 3 is okay, considering a lot of the level 3s are a bit weaker than this. It could be okay within a normal attribute, one of those normal type decks, but otherwise I don't see its worth. The next card is Pegasus Wing. It's a normal spell card. If you have a Union monster in your graveyard, target any number of Valkyrie monsters you control. Those monsters can attack directly this turn, but if they do so using this effect, their battle damage inflicted to your opponent is halved. This is a card I haven't actually tested with the Valkyries, because again, I haven't used the 2 Union monsters. One of them's at level 6 and one of them's at level 3. But if you perhaps are using them and have one of them in the graveyard, this actually helps to trigger off an effect to attack directly. If you're using the boosting effects of Thumped or Dritter or one of the other effects, which helps to boost up your cards, then actually doing this might be decent, because even with half the battle damage, you might be able to finish off your opponent. Although saying this, it is quite niche, and I wouldn't really be running more than the 1 copy, because it does rely on having a Union in the graveyard to begin with. Trickstar Magical Laurel is an equip spell with the effect: activate this card by targeting 1 Trickstar monster in your graveyard, special summon it and equip it with this card. When this card leaves the field, destroy that monster. Once per turn, if the equipped monster inflicts battle or effect damage to your opponent, you can special summon one Trickstar monster from your hand. You can only activate one Trickstar Magical Laurel per turn. So this card is basically a Call of the Haunted or a premature, more likely a premature burial for the Trickstar archetype. It's able to kind of also provide you more advantage by allowing you to special summon into some of your Trickstar monsters. It's a shame it's only from the hand, but even that can be enough advantage to be able to kind of overcome your opponent. I think it's decent for what it can do, and I would definitely see to running between 1 and 2 copies. I wouldn't run 3, because I think that might be a little bit heavy-handed. And the final card for the rares is a quick play spell card called Trickstar Bouquet. Its effect is target one Trickstar monster you control and one face-up monster on the field. Return that Trickstar monster to the hand, and if you do, the other monster gains attack equal to the original attack of the returned monster until the end of this turn. You can only activate one Trickstar Bouquet per turn. So this is one way you can actually splash other monsters into the Trickstar archetype, because it doesn't actually specify that the other monster has to be a Trickstar. It just has to be that your Trickstar being returned to the hand is the one giving the attack points to your other monster. So you could be running absolutely anything else. Saying that, you don't have too many Trickstar monsters out there at the moment. You've got the 2 that were mentioned before. One's Lilybell, which is 800 attack. The other is Narcissus, which is shown actually on the imagery on this and the picture, which is 1000 attack. But even those kind of stats are usually enough to, make some kind of difference. I would consider running between 1 and 2 of these, potentially probably 1, just because you don't want to be running too far away from the pure builds, but I can definitely see why it could be used. So what do you guys think of these cards? Which was your favourite card? Which was the worst? Which do you think is going to have absolutely no impact to Duel Links, outside of, those awful normal monsters that just won't have any value? Whatever you think, leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe.